Long before Jamestown, long before Plymouth Rock, there was Roanoke, England's very first daring leap into the New World, a bold vision of a new life, carved out of wilderness and uncertainty. But that vision disappeared. When English ships finally returned after an agonizing 3-year delay, they found nothing. No people, no bodies, no signs of struggle, just an empty settlement, and a single haunting clue left behind. The word Croatoan, etched deep into the trunk of a tree. No explanation, no answers, just silence. Was it a message to those who would come next? A sign of salvation or surrender? Or perhaps the final echo in a mystery that still haunts American history to this day? Strap in, time travelers. Tonight on Time Warp Thursday, we're dialing back to the year 1587 to uncover the eerie fate of the Lost Colony of Roanoke.
The following is rated TV MA and is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome, time travelers. It's Time Warp Thursday, June 5th, 2025, day 156 of the year. That's 3,744 hours into this wild ride called 2025. And believe it or not, we're already 42.74% of the way through the year. Blink twice and it'll be Halloween. Blink 3 times, boom, New Year's Eve. But tonight, we're not just flipping a page in the history book. No, we're tearing that sucker right out and lighting the time circuits. We're heading back way before cell phones, steam engines, even powdered wigs. Back to the summer of 1587. Before Jamestown, before the Mayflower, before America was even a twinkle in Europe's colonial eye. There was Roanoke. Picture it. A windswept stretch of untamed coastline, towering trees, unknown terrain, and the salty bite of the Atlantic crashing in from the east. Over 100 English settlers, men, women, and children, arrived on Roanoke Island in present-day North Carolina, determined to carve out a new life. They brought hopes, tools, seeds, and stories. They built homes, not homes, raised livestock, and even welcomed the first English child born on American soil, Virginia Dare. But then, silence. 3 years passed. A supply run turned into a long, agonizing delay. And when Governor John White finally returned to the colony in 1590, they were gone. All of them. Every last soul. No bodies, no blood, no burned out buildings, just emptiness. And a single word carved into a post. Croatoan. Was it a message, a clue, a warning? Speculation has swirled for centuries. Did they perish from disease or starvation? Were they attacked by hostile forces? Did they integrate with friendly tribes like the Croatan people? Or, and here's where it gets weird, did they vanish through a dimensional rift? Were they abducted by aliens? Swept into a Bermuda Triangle of the past? Okay, maybe that last one's a stretch. Or maybe not. Depending on who you ask on the internet at 3 o'clock in the morning. Tonight, we dive deep into the foggy, pine-scented shadows of one of America's oldest and eeriest cold cases. We'll sift through old maps, read the words of explorers, and weigh the evidence against centuries of storytelling, folklore, and flat-out conspiracy. So grab your compass, keep your eyes on the tree line, maybe leave a trail of breadcrumbs, because talk radio is heading straight into one of the greatest historical mysteries that were never solved, the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Now, set the scene here. It's the year 1587. The winds of ambition are howling through the courts of Elizabethan England. You get it? Elizabethan? Queen Elizabeth? Elizabeth? Never mind. Across the Atlantic lies a world that, to most Europeans, is as mysterious as it is promising. A vast and wild expanse known only as Virginia, named in honor of the Virgin Queen herself. England, late to the name of global empire building, is hungry. Hungry for land, for wealth, for power. And at the center of this imperial dream stands Sir Walter Raleigh, explorer, poet, and favored noble of Queen Elizabeth I. He doesn't just see a new colony, he sees the foundation, of a New England, one that might rival the mighty Spanish Empire. So the plan is laid. A fleet sets sail from England in the spring of 1587. On board are around 115 settlers, not soldiers, not mercenaries, but families, men, women, and children, all daring enough to risk everything for a chance at a new beginning. They are led by John White, a skilled mapmaker and artist who had already traveled to the Americas. He understands the terrain, the risks, the promise. His daughter Eleanor is among the passengers, pregnant with her first child. The spirit aboard the ships is one of cautious hope, underpinned by courage. Their destination is Roanoke Island, nestled between the Atlantic Ocean and the mainland coast of what is today North Carolina. But this isn't untouched territory. 2 previous English expeditions had already tried and failed to make Roanoke work. One ended in retreat, the other in violence. The land is lush but untamed, and relations with local indigenous tribes are, how can I say, complicated. Still, this time it feels different. This isn't just a colony in the economic sense, it's a true settlement. Homes are built, crops are planted, a fort rises, children play between the trees. And then a moment of history. Eleanor Dare gives birth to a daughter, Virginia, the first English child born on American soil. It's a symbol of permanence, not performance. Permanence, of hope. The settlers believe they are building not just a foothold, but a future. But the colony is fragile. Supplies begin to run low, tension rise with some neighboring tribes, while others offer cautious alliances. Realizing the urgency, John White agrees to sail back to England for reinforcements and provisions. He promises to return quickly. But fate has other plans. As White reaches England, Europe teeters on the edge of war. The Spanish Armada, a massive fleet dispatched by Catholic Spain, is preparing to invade Protestant England. Hello, over there on Kick. Thank you for tuning in. Every available English ship is seized by defense. John White pleads, argues, waits. Months become years. Roanoke, isolated and vulnerable, is left to survive on its own. Finally, in 1590, 3 years after he left, White returns. Pretty quick trip. Not. He arrives at Roanoke with a heart full of dread and hope. As he approaches the island, something feels off. The shoreline is eerily quiet. No welcoming party. No smoke from chimneys. No movement. They land. The colony is gone. Not destroyed. Simply abandoned. Houses stand intact but empty. The fort shows no signs of battle. The fields are overgrown. And then, the only clue. A single word carved into a wooden post of the fort's palisade. Croatoan. There are no bones, no graves, no blood, just silence. White had instructed the colonists, if they were forced to leave, to carve their destination, and if they were in danger, to mark a cross beside it. But there is no cross, just a word, a name, a mystery. Croatoan. It was the name of a nearby island and the name of a local indigenous tribe, friendly to the English. Did the settlers assimilate? Were they welcomed, or was this a final breadcrumb left behind by desperate colonists trying to vanish without a trace? To this day, no one knows. No conclusive evidence has ever surfaced. No clear explanation. The Lost Colony, as it became became the first and perhaps most haunting unsolved mystery in American history. And that's the story we're diving into tonight. From conspiracy theories to archaeological clues, I can't speak, we'll explore what might have happened to the brave souls of Roanoke and what that single word on a tree continues to whisper through the centuries. When John White, the governor of the Roanoke colony, finally returned to Roanoke Island, after that grueling 3-year quick trip back to England and back, what he found would set the stage for one of the greatest mysteries in American history. The colony gone. Not a soul in sight. No bodies, no signs of battle, no scorched earth or bloodshed. It was like the entire settlement had simply vanished. The houses had been dismantled rather than destroyed. The fort was taken down in an orderly way. No chaos, no destruction. It wasn't abandoned in a panic. It was more like a careful, deliberate disappearance. But again, there was something, a message. A single word carved into the bark of a sturdy oak tree. Croatoan. What is that word? Etched deep, intentional, clean, not scrawled like a warning or a last breath, but marked with purpose, as if the colonists wanted to leave behind a clue. And just that. No date, no names, no distress symbols like a cross, which the colonists had agreed to carve if they were in danger. So what does it mean? Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, present-day Hatteras Island, roughly 50 miles to the south. It was also home to the Croatoan people, a tribe the English had previously met, and in some accounts even gotten along with. Could the colonists have gone there? Did they abandon the struggling outpost at Roanoke and integrate into native society, hoping for survival in unfamiliar territory? Some historians believe this is the most plausible explanation. John White himself wanted to head to Croatoan Island to investigate, but a massive storm prevented his ship from reaching the destination. He would never get the chance to return. That word Croatoan has since become legend, a single breadcrumb in a forest of unanswered questions. Was it a message of hope, a sign that they were alive and relocating? Or was it a riddle wrapped in tragedy? A cryptic final chapter written by people who we never heard from again. It didn't take long for wild theories to blossom. Some imagine they were captured by hostile tribes or Spanish raiders. Others point to starvation, disease, or even supernatural explanations. But at the heart of it all, the word on the tree remains the only clue left behind. The final echo of over 100 lives swallowed by time. It's more than a word. It's a monument to the unknown. Croatoan, a name carved not just into the bark of a tree, but into the very roots of America's earliest and eeriest mystery. The Lost Colony of Roanoke wasn't just a band of adventurers or soldiers searching for gold, glory, or land. It was a fledgling community. Men, women, children, even newborns. These were people hoping to start over, to build life in a new world across the vast ocean. Among the 115 settlers were artisans, farmers, tradespeople, and investors, many of whom left everything behind in England. They weren't just looking to explore, they were hoping to belong. One name stands out above the rest, Virginia Dare, born in August of 1587. She was the first English child born in Americas, the granddaughter of the colony's Governor John White. Her birth made headlines back in Europe. She was seen as a symbol of English destiny in the New World. But Virginia wasn't alone. Among the colonists were, I'm going to butcher this one, Ananias Dare, Virginia's father, a tiler and bricklayer by trade. Eleanor White Dare, her mother and John White's daughter, one of only a few documented English women in the colony. George Howe, a senior colonist whose death, allegedly at the hands of Native Americans, was one of the few confirmed events post-settlement. Thomas Stevens, John Sampson, Roger Bailey, Arnold Archer, names listed among the gentlemen and financiers who backed the colony. Manteo, a Croatoan Native American who had previously traveled to England and returned to the New World with the English, later baptized and named Lord of Roanoke. Wanchese, another Native American emissary who had traveled to England with Manteo, but ultimately opposed English colonization. Many colonists were ordinary people, their full names mostly lost to history, but their roles were anything but ordinary. They included blacksmiths, coopers, weavers, and other skilled laborers who were supposed to build the backbone of a permanent settlement. Leading them was Governor John White, an accomplished artist and cartographer. His illustrations of New World flora, fauna, and indigenous communities remain among the earliest visual records of North America by an Englishman. But leadership wasn't enough to sustain the colony alone, and White knew they needed more supplies and reinforcements. So in late 1587, John White reluctantly set sail back to England to gather what was needed. He left behind his daughter, his granddaughter, and over 100 souls depending on him to return swiftly. But war got in the way. England was embroiled in the looming conflict with Spain, and the threat of the Spanish Armada meant no ships could be spared for a risky transatlantic resupply. White's return was delayed for 3 years. When he finally made it back in 1590, he found nothing. The colony was deserted, no signs of violence, no remains, no survivors. Just a word in the tree, Croatoan. There was no cross or distress symbol, as the colonists had agreed to carve if they were in danger. Just Croatoan. That single word has haunted historians ever since. Croatoan was the name of an island about 50 miles south, and the name of the indigenous people who lived there, Hatteras Island. Had the colonists relocated peacefully? Were they absorbed by the Croatoan tribe? Did they flee some threat, disease, drought, or conflict with other tribes such as the Sokotan or Dasamangdagaponke? How do you say that one? I don't know. I'm not even going to spell it because that's going to take some time. Anyways, moving on. Unfortunately, John White never reached Croatoan to investigate. Croatoan. I say Croatoan. It's my English here, okay? Everybody has different English. Some say it different ways, like Croatoan. I say Croatoan. Some people say crouton. It's different for everybody. My brother would be like saying, I don't know what my brother would say. A storm forced his ship away, and he never returned to the region again. To this day, no definitive evidence of the colonists' fate has been found. No graves, no documents, no confirmed descendants, just fragments, theories, and legend. But one thing is clear. This was no reckless expedition. This was a human story, a tale of hope, vulnerability, and courage. These were families trying to build something real. And that's what makes the mystery of Roanoke so enduring. Because when the past goes silent, the questions echo louder. Let's dive into the storm of speculation that still swirls around the fate of the lost colony of Roanoke. Despite centuries of searching, studying, and theorizing, we still don't have a definitive answer, but we do have compelling theories, some rooted in history, others in legend. Let's break them down. Number one, they joined native tribes. One of the most credible and enduring theories is that the colonists didn't perish, they merged. Historical accounts from the early 1600s mention native tribes like the Croatoan, however you want to say it. I say Croatoan, and Lumbee, who exhibited European features, gray eyes, lighter complexions, and even English-sounding surnames. These reports sparked the idea that the Roanoke settlers may have been absorbed into indigenous communities. And it makes sense. Facing starvation, disease, and isolation, the colonists would have had strong incentive to seek help. The Croatan people, who lived on nearby Hatteras Island, had previously shown friendly ties to English explorers. They may have offered shelter, food, and a chance for survival. Over time, the settlers could have assimilated, adopting language, dress, and customs. They wouldn't have vanished exactly. They'd have transformed. But here's the frustrating part. There's no definitive archaeological evidence. No artifacts that clearly show both English and native characteristics in one settlement. No confirmed burial sites. No documents. Just oral history and anecdotal accounts. Sorry, my English ain't that great. Tempting, persuasive, but still unproven. Number two, starvation and relocation. Next is a theory rooted in the brutal realities of colonial life, starvation. When Governor John White left for England in 1587, he promised to return swiftly with supplies, but war delayed him for 3 years. Imagine waiting in the wilderness, short on food, surrounded by unfamiliar terrain, unsure if help would ever come. Desperation may have pushed the colonists to abandon Roanoke Island and attempt to move inland, perhaps towards better hunting grounds, fresh water, or native allies. This makes sense, especially if they believed no help was coming. But moving wasn't simple. The terrain was dense and dangerous. They would have had to carry children, supplies, and tools, if they even had enough left. Many could have perished along the way. Disease, exposure, or conflict might have claimed them. And if they did build a new settlement, it was either too small to leave a mark, or still out there, undiscovered, buried beneath centuries of forest and growth. This theory explains why there were no bodies or signs of a struggle at Roanoke, because the settlers weren't attacked. They left. But where to? And what happened next? Those questions remain unanswered. Number three, Spanish attack. Another theory places the blame squarely on European geopolitics. In the late 1500s, Spain was a global powerhouse, and England's fiercest rival. Spain had settlements in Florida and ships patrolling the Atlantic coast. Some historians suggest that Spanish soldiers may have learned of the English colony and destroyed it quietly and ruthlessly before it could grow. It fits the time period. The Spanish Armada was defeated in 1588, but the war raged on. Taking out an enemy outpost would have been a strategic move. But no remains of weapons, no scorched buildings, no bullet holes, no cannonball fragments, and Spain left behind detailed logs of their expeditions, yet no mention of wiping out Roanoke. Is it possible they did it and just didn't record it? Maybe. But in an age where nations love bragging about victories, silence feels suspicious. That said, the idea still lingers, because in war, even silence can be strategic. Let me get a drink before we move on to number 4, because my throat is itchy. ah. Ah. Smooth and refreshing. Number 4, supernatural theories. Now we step into the shadowy realm of the unexplainable. Some people don't buy into starvation or Spanish raids. They turn instead to ghost stories, alien encounters, time portals, and ancient curses. The eerie emptiness of the site, the single word Croatoan, or Croatoan, or however you want to say it. Like I said, my English is not like everybody else's English. Y'all gonna learn that on this show. I speak my own way. So, the single word Croatoan, I'll say it my way. Y'all gonna get used to this. Feels more like a horror movie than a historical event. Some versions claim the settlers angered native spirits or disturbed sacred lands. Others imagine a Bermuda Triangle-like phenomenon off the coast of North Carolina, where ships and people simply vanish. There are whispers of a vengeful witch, a coastal curse, or a terror in the fabric of time. Pop culture has run wild with these ideas. Stephen King, American Horror Story, documentaries, and dramatizations galore. These theories may lack hard evidence, but they pack a punch in the imagination. Hello, Yasser94 over on Kick. Thank you for watching. And sometimes, in the absence of proof, the unknown is more satisfying when it's spooky. Let's be real. Ghosts and aliens probably didn't take the colonists, but they've certainly haunted our curiosity. Number 5, the secret code. And finally, one of the most subtle yet intriguing clues left behind, the word Croatoan. Governor John White had left instructions before selling to England. If the colonists needed to leave or were in danger, they should carve a message in a tree. And if they were under duress, to include a cross symbol. When he returned and found Croatoan etched in a post, many assumed it meant they had gone to Croatoan Island, modern-day Hatteras. But there was no cross. That might mean they weren't attacked, weren't in danger. They left intentionally, willingly, maybe even with hope. But White never confirmed that they made it to Croatoan. He tried to search but was blocked by storms and bad luck. He never saw them again. That single word is the last confirmed communication from the colony. It's like a breadcrumb left on the forest floor, one that leads nowhere. Yet. So what really happened to the Lost Colony of Roanoke? Did they blend into native communities and quietly survive? Did they starve and scatter, their final moments lost in the wild? Were they crushed in a covert war, or swept away by something beyond our understanding? Centuries later, we still don't know. But that's what makes the mystery so magnetic. It's not just a tale of disappearance. It's a story of resilience, fear, hope, and the vast unknown. And maybe, just maybe, the answers are still out there, beneath the soil, behind the trees, waiting to be uncovered by the next explorer, the next archaeologist, maybe even a curious podcast listener like you. What do you believe happened at Roanoke? Let us know on social media, or drop your theory in the comments. We'll share the best ones in next week's episode. Now, fast forward to the 21st century. 4 centuries after the colony's disappearance, and the mystery of Roanoke is still alive. But now the tools we are using to solve it are sharper, smarter, and rooted in cutting-edge science. Take for example, the archaeological digs. Y'all gonna get used to me not being able to speak that properly. The digs conducted on what we now call Hatteras Island, formerly known as Croatoan Island. This is the very place the word Croatoan was carved, possibly pointing towards the settlers' final destination. Over the years, archaeologists working with the Lost Colony Center for Science and Research have uncovered fragments of English-style pottery, broken bits of swords, and even Elizabethan era tools. See, I like that, Elizabethan. Queen Elizabethan, all dating back to the late 1500s. These artifacts match the timeline of the colony's disappearance and suggest that at least some of the settlers may have successfully assimilated into the local native population. More than just surviving, they may have adapted, sharing technology, intermarrying. I would just say they married into the natives or something. And learning the ways of the Croatian people in a powerful act of cultural fusion. It wouldn't be the first time in history that survival meant blending in rather than dominating. But that's only part of the picture. Let's talk about the Lumbee tribe, an indigenous group from inland North Carolina with strikingly European features and last names that trace back to early English records. For generations, the Lumbee have preserved oral traditions that speak of ancestors who came from the sea and brought with them unfamiliar customs and language. Some tribal members even tell stories of ancestors who built homes differently, with tools not originally native to the region. While not concrete proof, these oral histories may provide valuable context when pieced together with archaeological findings. I said it good that time. You hear that? Y'all hear that? I did good that time. I did good. I give myself props. Now, here's where things get even more fascinating, like something out of a spy novel. In 2012, researchers at the British Museum took another look at one of Governor John White's original maps of the New World. This wasn't just any map. It was one of the most detailed colonial charts of its time. But when scanned under infrared light, researchers noticed something hidden beneath a patch, a symbol that appeared to mark the location of a previously unknown fort inland near the Chowan River. The site, now called Site X, may have been a contingency plan, a secret fallback location in case Roanoke fell. While no complete settlement has been uncovered there yet, preliminary digs have unearthed 16th century English objects such as pieces of slate pencils, fragments of armor, and early ceramics. These discoveries tell a new kind of story, not one of abrupt disappearance, but one of migration, fragmentation, and perhaps even quiet endurance. Maybe the colonists didn't vanish at all. Maybe they just changed course, surviving in a way history didn't expect. Modern technology, from satellite imagery to ground-penetrating radar and DNA analysis, is helping unravel this mystery thread by thread. The picture is still incomplete, but with each layer of dirt, each artifact, and each whispered story passed down through generations, we're getting closer to the truth. One thing is certain. Roanoke's legacy didn't end in 1587. It just slipped into the shadows, waiting to be found. Alright, time travelers, this is where you come in. We've taken you on a deep dive through 4 centuries of clues, theories, and discoveries about the lost colony of Roanoke. We've talked about carvings on trees, whispers from the Lumbee, mysterious maps, and ancient tools buried in Carolina soil. But the real power of history lies in interpretation, in asking, what if, and daring to dream beyond the textbooks. So what's your theory? Did the settlers abandon Roanoke to join the Croatoan in a quiet alliance for survival? Were they wiped out by a natural disaster or devastating conflict we've never fully uncovered? Or, and this gets weird for a second, was something more bizarre at play? A curse, a cover-up, something supernatural, or even extraterrestrial? No theory is too bold or too out there. Remember, 400 years ago, the idea of flying machines or moon landings would have sounded like pure fiction. So let's hear your wildest, wisest, and most creative takes. Email your theory to us at talkradiotimewarp@gmail.com, and we might feature your ideas next week's show, whether it's based on evidence or pure imagination. Your contribution could add a brand new perspective to one of history's greatest mysteries. And hey, if you're feeling inspired, you can even send us an audio clip, your own time warp theory, and we might play it right here on the air. So go ahead, put on your historian's hat and your sci-fi helmet. Tell us how you would solve the mystery of the Lost Colony, because sometimes the key to the past is hidden in the minds of the present. But let's get into some Roanoke in pop culture. The mystery of Roanoke has captivated imaginations for centuries, and that fascination has spilled far beyond the pages of history books. It's become a cultural touchstone, a haunting question mark that pops up again and again in popular media, often wrapped in layers of horror, intrigue, and supernatural. One of the most well-known pop culture adaptations is American horror story, Roanoke, the sixth season of the wildly popular anthology series, set up like a paranormal documentary gone wrong. The season uses the eerie disappearance of the colony as a launch pad into full-blown psychological and supernatural horror. The infamous Croatoan carving becomes a sinister motif, symbolizing everything from possession to vanishing souls. It's Roanoke reimagined as a ghost story, drenched in blood and dread, and yet still echoing that original historical void of what happened to them. But the Roanoke legacy goes beyond screen scares. It has wormed its way into the pages of novels, short stories, and speculative fiction of all kinds. Authors have filled the blanks with every possible theory under the sun. Secret massacres, assimilation into native tribes, alien abduction, interdimensional travel, ancient curses, time loops, you name it. The mystery's very emptiness is what fuels creativity. It invites people to imagine, to speculate, to write the endings history never gave us. In the world of comics and graphic novels, Roanoke becomes a gothic backdrop, a desolate village swallowed by the woods, where characters vanish without a trace or stumble into otherworldly dimensions. These artistic interpretations lean into Roanoke's liminality, its status as a place that once was, but now isn't. Its fate forever suspended in a kind of narrative purgatory. Even legendary authors like Stephen King couldn't resist the lure of Roanoke. King has used the word Croatoan in multiple stories, often as a symbol of ominous disappearance, a supernatural sign that something has gone horribly wrong. In Storm of the Century, Hearts in Atlantis, and elsewhere, Croatoan appears carved or scrawled in unsettling places, almost like an Easter egg for the initiated. For King and for readers, it's a shorthand for the inexplainable, a single word that hints at something vast, terrifying, and unknowable, just beyond the veil of reality. And here's a spine-tingling tidbit that feels straight out of urban legend. There's a long circulated rumor that Edgar Allan Poe's final word before his own mysterious death was Croatoan. No records confirm it, but the idea persists like a ghost in the literary world. The thought that even Poe, the master of the macabre, might have uttered that name with his final breath is both chilling and strangely poetic. Huh? My wife's, she makes fun of me all the time. It's a reminder of how deeply embedded this mystery is in our cultural psyche. You'll even find Roanoke referenced in everything from video games to escape rooms, podcasts to tabletop RPGs. The mystery of the Lost Colony had become a kind of narrative, Rosetta Stone, a blank canvas for our deepest fears about disappearance, the unknown, and things left unsaid. So, Roanoke isn't just history, it's hauntology, a mystery that echoes across generations, haunting our bookshelves, our screens, our stories, and maybe even our dreams. It reminds us that some questions are so big, so eerie, so empty, they demand to be filled in over and over again. And the more we retell them, the more the line blurs between history and legend. So, where does that leave us after everything we've uncovered tonight? After the eyewitness accounts, the carved word, the clues scattered across centuries, what are we left with? We're left with a mystery, one of the oldest, most haunting in American history. A colony of 115 men, women, and children, people with names, hopes, families, and futures, vanished without a trace. No battle, no wreckage, no graves, just gone. And despite over 4 centuries of speculation, investigation, and technological progress, we're still staring into the same void that Governor John White faced when he returned to that silent, abandoned settlement. But maybe that's why Roanoke continues to hold us in its grip. It's not just the missing people. It's the space they left behind. It's the silence. It's that single word that I'm not going to say, carved into a post, like a message in a bottle, cast in history's ocean. Because Roanoke isn't just a story about what happened. It's a story about what might have happened. In that uncertainty lies its power. We are drawn to the mystery because it reminds us that history is alive, not just in the past, but in the questions we continue to ask. Roanoke becomes a canvas for imagination. Were they rescued? Absorbed into a native community? Lost at sea? Taken by something far stranger? In that way, Roanoke is more than a historical event. It's a mirror, a reflection of how we deal with the unknown. Some seek hard evidence. Some find meaning in the myth. And some, perhaps like you, find wonder in the in-between, in the liminal space where stories live and breathe. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real legacy of Roanoke. Not just the mystery itself, but the invitation it extends to investigate, to learn, to dream, to respect the history of the people who were here long before colonists ever set foot on the shore, to listen to the silence and try to hear what it has to say. Because somewhere out there, buried beneath the soil of the Outer Banks, in the DNA of a local tribe, or passed down through whispered oral tradition, the truth may still linger, not erased, just waiting for the right question, the right moment, the right set of eyes. So the next time you hear the word, you know the word, don't just think of the colony that vanished. Think of the people who lived. Think of the stories we've lost and the ones we might still recover. And remember, history doesn't always tie up its loose ends. Some stories fade, some disappear, But the best ones stay with us, echoing across the centuries like a whisper in the wind. Until next time, time travelers, keep asking questions, keep chasing answers, and keep tuning into the stories time tried to bury. This has been Time Warp Thursday. I'm your host, and the mystery that's still out there. See you next week.